speak from that. So we'll get started. Om Ajnana Timrandasya Jnana Jana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Sri Guruve Namaha. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupam Kadhamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So we'll read today from Queen Kunti's Press, Srimad Bhagavatam 1.8.36. The verse: Shrinvanti gayanti grinanti apekshanasha smaranti nandanti tavihitam janaha ta eva pashyanti achirena tavakam bhava pravaho uparamam padam bhujam. Synonyms: Shrinvanti, hear; gayanti, chant; grinanti, take; abhikshanasha, continuously; smaranti, remember; nandanti, take pleasure; tava, your; titam, ihitam, activities; janaha, people in general; te, they; eva, certainly; pashyanti, can see; achirena, very soon; tavakam, your; bhava pravaha, the current of rebirth; uparamam, cessation; padambojam, lotus feet. Translation: O Krishna, those who continuously hear, chant, and repeat your transcendental activities or take pleasure in others doing so certainly see your lotus feet, which alone can stop the repetition of birth and death. Purport by Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. The Supreme Lord Sri Krishna cannot be seen by our present conditional vision. In order to see him, one has to change his present vision by developing a different condition of life, full of spontaneous love of Godhead. When Sri Krishna was personally present on the face of the globe, not everyone could see him as a supreme personality of Godhead. Materialists like Ravana, Hiranyakashipu, Kamsa, Jarasandha, and Shishupal were highly qualified personalities by acquisition of material assets, but they were unable to appreciate the presence of the Lord. Therefore, even though the Lord may be present before our eyes, it is not possible to see him unless we have the necessary vision. This necessary qualification is developed by the process of devotional service only, beginning with hearing about the Lord from the right sources. The Bhagavad Gita is one of the popular literatures which are generally heard, chanted, repeated, etc. by the people in general. But in spite of such hearing, etc., sometimes it is experienced that the performer of such devotional service does not see the Lord face to face. The reason is that the first item, Shravana, is very important. If hearing is from the right sources, it acts very quickly. Generally, people hear from unauthorized persons. Such unauthorized persons may be very learned by academic qualifications, but because they do not follow the principles of devotional service, hearing from them becomes a sheer waste of time. Sometimes the texts are interpreted fashionably to suit their own purposes. Therefore, first one should select a competent and bona fide speaker and then hear from him. When the hearing process is perfect and complete, the other processes become automatically perfect in their own way. There are different transcendental activities of the Lord, and each and every one of them is competent to bestow the desired result provided the hearing process is perfect. In the Bhagavatam, the activities of the Lord begin from his dealings with the Pandavas. There are many other pastimes of the Lord in connection with the dealings with the Asuras and others. And in the 10th canto, the sublime dealings with his conjugal associates, the Gopis, as well as with his married wives at Dwaraka, are mentioned. Since the Lord is absolute, there is no difference in the transcendental nature of each and every dealing of the Lord. But sometimes people in an unauthorized hearing process take more interest in hearing about his dealings with the gopis. Such an inclination indicates a lusty feelings of the hearer. So a bona fide speaker of the dealings of the Lord never indulges in such hearings. One must hear about the Lord from the very beginning, as in the Srimad Bhagavatam or any other scriptures, that will help the hearer attain perfection by progressive development. One should not therefore consider that his dealings with the Pandavas are less important than his dealings with the gopis. We must always remember that the Lord is always transcendental to all mundane attachment. In all the above mentioned dealings of the Lord, he is the hero in all circumstances, and hearing about him or about his devotees or combatants is conducive to spiritual life. It is said that the Vedas and the Puranas, etc., are all made to revive our lost relation with him. Hearing of all these scriptures is essential. So yeah, Prabhu. So yesterday what Balram Prasad Prabhu spoke about is also about hearing being the one that can bestow us with liberation and that can take us out of this material world. And this verse continues that, and I like the analogy that was presented yesterday by Prabhu, when he said that he likened he spoke about the computer and the different softwares that we keep loading onto that computer and the different viruses that those softwares produce. And then we try to take the antivirus software and try to get rid of those viruses, but they keep coming back because we are just keep loading ourselves with different software and different perceptions of the world and different things that we do in this material world. And finally, when we have to go back to Godhead, we have to go back in our original condition. We have to erase everything that we have on that computer, that hard disk, in our heart, in our soul. We have to erase all of that, and then we'll be able in a position to actually go back to Krishna. And so what is the process of doing that? What is the process of how can we erase all our material conceptions, all our material attachments? How do we break that knot that these material perceptions have or conceptions have produced in our heart? And that process Krishna is giving, and he's saying it is hearing, and it is spiritual hearing, and hearing from the right person and hearing in the right consciousness. So when we hear from the right person and in the right consciousness, and when we chant and when we repeat what we hear, it goes deeper into our hearts. And when we repeat what we hear about the transcendental activities of the Lord, here Queen Kunti is saying there are two things that take place. That one is that we cross over the cycle of birth and death, and the second is that we attain the lotus feet of the Lord. So that's in a summary of what this verse is, a quick summary of what this verse is saying. And actually, Krishna is so kind that we chose to leave Krishna and come away to this material world. And he said, okay, you have free will, you can go. He chose not to interfere with our free will, but he still gave us the boat to cross, to come back to him. He still gave us the path and the means to get back to him. So hearing is one such means of getting back to Krishna. But hearing from the right source is very important. And I was just listening to Maharaj because always my question was, now how do we figure out who this right source is? We hear everywhere, yeah, we should hear from the right source, but there are so many people that talk about the scriptures. So how would we find out who the right people are that we should hear from? And so Maharaj had given some qualifications of the rights of the speaker and what we should really be looking out for. So some of that is, and that I think is very well detailed in the Bhagavad Gita, where they talk about disciplic succession. But some of the highlights of what Maharaj spoke about, he said, it is one who is able to control the 7 urges. Like in the Nectar of Instruction, we hear that verse, the Vacho Vegam verse. So one who is able to control his words, mind, anger, stomach, genitals. So that's somebody who you should be looking to. And one who is dhira, who is sober, who is steady in under all circumstances. And most importantly, one whose devotional service is not prompted by anything material, nor is it checked by anything material. So, if you think of Srila Prabhupada, there was nothing material that really prompted his devotional service. It came from his heart. He wanted that devotional service. He wanted love of God. He wanted his connection with Krishna, and there was nothing. And most importantly, there was nothing that checked it or checked his material, his devotional service either. When coming to the West, he came to the West just to fulfill his spiritual master's instructions. And there were innumerable obstacles on the way as well as after he landed here. The innumerable health obstacles, the heart attacks, coming to a foreign land, not knowing anything, without much money. None of that checked his devotional service. So that there itself is, and he always never put himself up front. He's always known through and by Krishna and by Krishna's name. So there in itself, you can make out that he is the right source to hear from. So those are some of the um, characteristics or things that we need to watch out for to understand who we should hear from. Because if you hear from the wrong source, you have absolutely the right opposite effect. It's like the milk touched by the mouth of a serpent, it becomes poison. So it's a very, very important thing to do to hear from the right source. And hearing will then change our vision. Like in the purport says, presently our vision is all conditioned. We don't have love, real genuine love, right, in the material world. We all we have is really lust. We call love, but even that is lust because we always have some selfish desire. The closest thing would be a mother to a child, maybe, to love, but even that has some selfish desire. If you look at it closely and deeply, there will be some. So genuine love is not present. So in order to cultivate that genuine love within us, we have to hear and keep hearing from the right source, the right consciousness. I think I'm repeating it, but it is that important. And like the demons, and the purport also mentions the demons like Shishupal and Jarasandha and Hiranyakashipu. They were always thinking of the Lord. They were always, but they were thinking of the Lord in a very inimical way. Right? They were filled with jealousy and envy and hatred for the Lord. So that's not the vision that we want to see the Lord in. You'll never attain the lotus feet of the Lord if we do that. If we do that. And when we start hearing with some faith. um, Obviously in the beginning our faith won't be strong. It'll be very wavering, and but we should still hear with that initial faith. And what that hearing does is, and when we should hear and we should try to apply what we hear. Even though it is small things, we should still try to apply what we hear. And we should hear with the goal of connecting to Krishna. Because many cases, at least in the beginning, we try to hear and we pray and all of that for material benefits. So that's not going to take us very far. But we should try to hear with the intent of knowing Krishna. I want to know who Krishna is. I want to connect with Krishna. And when we hear with those, and when we apply some of the things that we hear, what happens is we get some realizations. And when we get those realizations, that will enrich our faith some more. So it's like a constant feedback cycle. So when our faith is enriched some more, we are more eager to hear and we are more eager to apply. So that if we follow that process, and if we are hearing with our faith will increase. Uh, we need to hear with faith, we need to hear with submission, we need to hear with the right goal in mind, and we need to hear from someone who has properly heard before, and that person is also properly following what he has heard. Yeah. And when we hear, we of course we are always filled with desire. We always have different desires. Like I said, sometimes we hear and pray in the beginning, especially, and even now, nobody is free of desire. I mean, we still have material desires. But what we need to do, and what our goal is through this hearing process, is to spiritualize those material desires. So the problem is not the desire, because desire is intrinsic to the soul. The problem is our materialistic desires, and how we desire something separate from Krishna. So, by desiring Krishna's happiness, then our love for Krishna becomes awakened. And Maharaj was also talking about ardent hearing. You know, ardent meaning focused, dedicated, strong, like the Tivrena Bhakti Yogena, like that just focused hearing from the right source. That will bring us the results, because sometimes we hear people saying, oh gosh, I'm here, I'm chanting, I'm hearing, nothing is happening, nothing is moving, right? Even we, I mean, not people say, I mean, even I have that those days, many days, when I say I'm hearing so much, I'm chanting so much, but still, my material desires and my material hankerings still exist. Why is that? So that obviously that we have to adjust the consciousness with which we are hearing, and the reasons for which we are hearing, we have to adjust that. So it's the process is perfect, how we are applying the process is faulty, and that's why we don't get the results that we want to get. What time is it? Okay, 7:18. And when we read, there is jnana, a reading for jnana, and there's reading out of bhakti, right? So jnana is just for gathering knowledge. Basically, it's mostly academic. I mean, unless it is backed by bhakti, it is jnana by itself is mostly academic. Bhakti, when we read with bhakti, we are reading so that Krishna can be pleased. It's not because what we want is Krishna's pleasure. That's what we want, nothing else. So when we read with that intent, it is liberating, and it actually sets us free, right? And sound vibe, and we also should understand, and we also should always keep in mind that the name of Krishna, when we hear about Krishna, the name of Krishna, the pastimes of Krishna, the paraphernalia of Krishna, is all also Krishna. So we're actually associating with Krishna through his sound vibrations, through his pastimes, through hearing about him, his name, everything are non-different from him. And sometimes we tend to forget that. So when we vibe, and we are so fortunate to have got this process, to have this process, and we should be full of gratitude for having met the disciplic succession, the right people. We have all of that within our reach. We have the right books, we have the right people, people to hear from. We have the strength of the disciplic succession. We have a devotee association. All these are conducive to increasing our love for God and for Krishna, and connecting with him. It is only, like I said, our faulty senses and our faulty desires that is standing between us and our connection, deep connection with Krishna. And we look at everything through the lens of lust, whereas in the spiritual world, everything is looked at through the lens of love. So we've got to transform our lust into love. That is, love meaning uh, it's true love when we're doing things for the benefit of the beloved. So when we do things to connect deeply with the beloved, or for to please the beloved, then without any tinge of selfishness, then that's love. And so that's the goal we should have when we are listening to spiritual topics. Okay. And then I think I like this, that it is a practical application that Maharaj spoke about. He was talking about what Bhaktivinoda Thakur recommended that we do on a daily basis at the end of the day, so that we are eager the next day to get up and start our hearing and chanting process. So he said at the end of the day, what you want to do is look at what went well that day, of course, and then what didn't go so well, what improvements you think you can make for tomorrow, and then anticipate with eagerness your reading and hearing for the next day. So with that eagerness, you go to sleep. So when you get up next morning, that eagerness will still stay with you. And then remember what you did, what didn't go so well, what went well, and what improvements you've already made. You've already thought through that the previous day. You already have the eagerness to apply that for the next day and to read and hear. So I thought that was a really good practical application for us uh, to try and follow on a daily basis, and a very good way to end our day, and thinking about Krishna and thinking about what we can do the next day so that we can enhance our relationship with Krishna. And what happens when we do this? When Krishna sees our effort, he will enlighten us from within. When we take up this process with faith and with submission and with humility and sincerity, and then Krishna will enlighten us from within. We don't have to, there's no separate endeavor that's needed from our side. This is all that's needed. And through the hearing process, all other processes of devotional service, like Kirtanam, Vishnu Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Sakyam, all of that becomes enhanced through Shravanam, because we are able to understand who Krishna is, what our relationship with Krishna is, enhance our love for Krishna. So hence, when we do all of the other devotional services, we are doing it on the strength of that hearing. So that's another very big advantage of hearing. And there's a lot more that's been said about hearing. It's a vast topic, and it's actually a very, very nice topic, and to keep listening to, so that we have get more and more motivation to read, hear, and hear in the right consciousness as well. So that's what I had. That was what I had prepared, or what came from my heart. Prabhu's, Mataji's, anything, any questions, additions, inspirations, comments, please do add.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my
Hare,
humble obeisances. All Krishna Srila Prabhupada and Guru Maharaj.
please.
Mataji, wonderful class, Mataji.
Mhm.
I just had one question about hearing.
Yeah.
Being who I am, sometimes I get burnt out,
Mm.
and I can't hear anymore. And it may sound horrible, but
Mm.
it's what it is. And that's the time when all other things take over. You want to listen to something else and all those things. How do
Right.
we deal with this, Mataji?
Uh, so that's a good question, and I think it's something that most of us face as well. But I think at that point, that's why I feel. I mean, this is mine. I think I'm sure everybody else can also add to it. But I think at that time, if you read in a group, there's all then it's or at least with another person, then there's somebody else to motivate you to that's where association, I think, comes in. Because if you try to do it on your own, and yeah, there will be burnout, there will be days when you don't want to read. But when you read in a group, hopefully there is one day where somebody else on that day somebody else will want to read, and then you join that group, or you join with the other person and you read. I mean, I don't think there's a magic bullet to this, except that we have to keep reading. And that's what I've heard Maharaj say also. You have to keep reading, and you have to keep with the process and with the faith that Krishna is seeing your effort, and that Krishna will reciprocate, and that you will not feel burnt out the next day or in the next 2 days. So I think one key thing is to keep with it, and to in association. of other devotees who, have the inspiration to read. Those are the two things that I would say, Prabhu. But e- everybody else is welcome to say. Yeah, Prabhu?
Hare Krishna Mataji.
Yes, Hare Krishna.
Glory to Srila Prabhupada.
Glory Srila
I'm
Prabhupada.
very, very happy to here today. I'm very fortunate. It's a long time hearing from you, honestly.
Thank you for your patience.
Please, the way you, it was a nectar for me, honestly, the way you expressed from your heart. One thing touched my heart was, the hearing from the right source. So my mind went back to whenever Maharaj comes, and when I hear from him sitting there, sometimes even I read and somebody also explains, doesn't go to the heart.
Yeah.
But Maharaj speaks such a simple words, it directly touches the heart.
Yeah.
So that's very much true. But because who is the person who is speaking and whom should we hear from?
Right.
It's the most important thing. What you mentioned. Thank you so much for that, Maharaj.
No
Really
problem.
appreciate it. Because that, even though we know, we don't sometimes.
Yes.
Right? So,
Yeah.
and another one is the focus, basically the rapt attention. That's the most important thing. Many times, even Srimad Bhagavatam and the Vaisheshika Prabhu says zillion times, anything you hear has to be rapt attention. Then only such focuses on the heart.
Right.
Yes, Mataji. Thank you so much.
Yeah. No, thank you, Prabhu. Yeah. And so that's, like I said, many times we wonder why we are not getting the benefit of our hearing. And it's only because, there's nothing wrong in the process at all. Process is perfect. We have to look within ourselves and see what is it that we are not doing right. Some adjustment is needed over there. So, yeah. So we have to do that. Thank you, Prabhu.
Hare Krishna Ruchira Mataji, so much.
Hare Krishna.
Please accept my humble.
Please accept mine too.
Very wonderful to hear you because we are so rarely here. And it was a very nice class. Even I am thinking after so many years what to do to improve my hearing and chanting after so many years. And you have again motivated and given such a good instruction in terms of Bhakti Vinod Thakur's every daily analyzing what went wrong today and to prepare for next day. It's a very, very, this is what all of us are trying to look inside our hearts. And so you have done a very good job. Thank you very much for inspiring.
Thank you for the encouragement, Mataji. Thank you to Lingaraj Prabhu for keeping with me and being patient with me. I told him many times that I won't be able to do it. So many times I've said no to him, but he kept with it. So
thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji, thank you so much. It's so wonderful as the other devotees are sharing.
Thank you.
I was looking at your name on Monday, and when you're not speaking, I was like, oh no, again. I was thinking, but very happy this morning when I heard you. It's very wonderful the way you have described, and very specific points. Thank you so much for condensing from Maharaj lecture and sharing, Mataji. I heard this the other day for Radha Kunj Bihari Prabhu's question. I was really inspired with that. Just wanted to share. So this is from Chaitanya Charan Prabhu. He was writing based on the Bhagavad Gita 6th chapter verses for mind's instruction. So what Prabhu is sharing is most often we say, oh, I don't have attraction. How can I actually do chanting or hearing? Only if I have the taste, then I will do it. So Prabhu is saying it's not just with the attraction that we keep up. It's with our determination also. And as you are sharing, when we have the determination and then keep up with it, then we can actually see the result. And you were saying about this continuous feedback cycle. And so that was nice. And I'm also relating to what you just shared. In spite of the initial inhibitions, I don't want to speak, Lingaraji Prabhu, how he kept with it.
Yes.
And we could see the result.
Yes.
How wonderful it is. Thank you so much,
Thank
Mataji.
you. Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna Mataji. Thank you so
Hare
much. It
Krishna.
was so nice class. So I think,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you for repeating so many points, nice points. I was keep thinking even this morning. I was asking this question to, earlier in this group as well as tomorrow's. We see devotees like Narada Muni, right? So, just by hearing from, these great souls, 4 months, he was able to become like that. But we are
Yes.
hearing, right, from so many months and years.
Right.
Then the intention is, you clearly mentioned with the right intention, right? If we are not doing, it doesn't work out. It's like just maybe for jnana or right,
Exactly.
just academics. So
Yeah.
yeah, with bhakti is the most important thing, and also the dry wood. And Maharaj was giving that. I remember
Yes.
that answer.
Dry wood and
like a wet wood. So
yeah, it takes longer to ignite
yes,
for us.
it was so
Yes.
nice. So many
Yeah.
good things. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhu. Thank you very much for getting me out of my shell and being able to
Yeah,
give a
nice.
class. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. So thank you all. If there's no other questions, I think we're a little past 3 minutes past 7:30, so we can end here. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.